Today, I'm chatting with Linsae Snider, longtime Executive Director of Texas School Public Relations Association, or TSPRA, about the power of connections and building a culture of community. Hey everyone, I am Caressa Parrish at ClassTag, and I am joined here with the fabulous Linsae Snider. I feel like I'm sitting here with a celebrity. For those of you who don't know Linsae, Linsae is the former executive director at TSPRA and just recently retired after 12 years in that role. But really, she has a long history in public education, and I'm just so excited that she's here today. Thank you, Linsae, for joining me.
Excited to be here.
And Linsae, I know that you did not just start in TSPRA. Like I mentioned, you've been in public education for a really long time. So will you just take a few minutes to share more about how did you get started in education and how did you end up at your position at TSPRA?
Sure. My mother was a teacher. In fact, she was a teacher in the same school district, the same job for 40 years. She was one of my teachers. So it's at that age where girls were pretty much teachers. So I did go to college. I went to Texas Tech. I majored in home economics education, which is something that we really don't even teach anymore, and we should. And I'm going to be an advocate for bringing back some of those courses because I think we're seeing a generation now that needs home economics. My parents had all of us go on and get a master's degree. So the good part about that was I went to college for 5 years before I had to work. But I ended up being a teacher. I moved from the panhandle of Texas in a very rural farming community to the Houston area to teach in a refinery community. So totally different cultures. So I was exposed to that. While I was there, about my third year to teach, my principal called me in and asked me if I had ever thought about getting my men management certificate. And of course, I was about 25 years old. I didn't know what that was, but he told me it involved getting a master's. And of course, you know how we are when we're in our 20s. We know everything. And of course, I was like, no, I have a master's. And he's like, nope, this is something else. So he goes on to explain to me that he's got a couple of assistant principals who are looking at retiring in the next couple of years. And he wants to move me into an assistant principal's position, but I need this men management certificate. I remember looking at him because I worked with two assistant principals that I just thought were morons. And I remember looking at him and saying, so this person and this person did this? And he said, yeah. And I was like, oh, well, if they can do it, I know I can. So fast forward, I did get my men management certificate. I ended up moving back to Lubbock, my hometown. I ended up getting a job at the service center there. So I worked at Region 17 for 20 years. And I'm very fortunate there because I was kind of there when service centers were growing. And I was able to work into a lot of different startup positions. So, I won't bore you with all of them, but I probably worked in about 8 or 9 different startup positions. One of them was doing the communications for the service center. So that's kind of how I got into the communications role. I went from there to a school district as a central office administrator. I never served as a principal, but I was at the central office. While at Region 17, I did a lot of the principal training. So I kind of got that end of it. I understood that part. Professional development was my thing. So I really learned during that I love teaching, but I love teaching adults. And so it was a great blend there. I was a member of TSPRA because I did communications work in the school district where I worked at. And luckily, when the executive director was retiring, it was time that I could retire under TRS. And so I applied for the job. Luckily, I got the job and was at TSPRA for the next 12 years, and the best job anybody could ever ask for. So,
I love that.
And then I turned 65 and I retired.
Yay, living the good life now, for sure.
So,
yeah, well,
I think the role I brought to TSPRA is I understood education, understood instruction, I understood working with adults. And then I was never a pro at communications, but I learned enough about communications from the communications people that I learned a lot from that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and I think just part of leadership in general is communication, like effective communication is the core of it. So even though maybe communication wasn't what you went to school to learn about, it's to become a leader, you have to know the principles of communication.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We're here to chat about community, building community in schools and districts. So Linsae, tell me a little bit more about your philosophy of what does community mean to you?
I'm pretty specific on what community means to me. And community is a huge, important aspect of leadership. Whether you're a superintendent, whether you're a communications director, whether you're a teacher, it's about community. And I don't think they really teach us that in our education classes. The best way I like to define community is connection. You got to connect people, and that's how you build community, is connections. And there's a whole lot of things about communications that come into connections. And the first thing I'm going to say is, we all know, we learned early on, we've heard it our whole life, that people make a first impression in the first 3 seconds. It's not what you say. It's the body language. It's the visual. It's not the words. It's the tone, but the tone comes out in your words and the tone comes out in your body language. So I think the first way we build community, or first way we connect, is through our appearance. And I'm pretty big on that. When I visit schools and I look at people, and sometimes I'm in these schools and I look, and, the biggest employer in many communities is the school district. And the superintendent and the principals are the CEOs of the biggest employers in a community. And I look at them sometimes and I'm like, this is not how bankers, this is not how lawyers, this is not how leaders in other professions look. We need to look like a leader. And I know that's probably offensive to some people. And I know there's days where we all want to look and be comfortable. But I think our appearance is the first thing. So it's those first 3 seconds, how we connect. The second thing about connection is being present. You got to be there. You got to leave your office. You got to show up. You got to be seen. And that's a hard task because we're busy. And in schools, we're busier than we've ever been. And we just have to build that time in where we leave the office. The work's going to sit there. We're going to have to get to it later or eventually, but we've got to go into classrooms. We've got to go out into the community. We've got to go to the coffee shops. We got to go to churches. We got to go see the realtors. We got to go to civic groups. We've got to be seen. And I'll speak of that if you're a superintendent, if you're a communications director, if you're a teacher, you can't leave and do those things, but your presence at the grocery stores, your presence at church, your presence at the dollar store, that's a connection you're making. And your appearance is probably the first thing. Something I'll bring up too is, my mother was a teacher, so I never saw or felt that until I was a teacher. But, when you're out in the community and your kids parents see you, they're like, oh, there's the teacher. She's in the dollar store.
Yeah.
She's in the dollar store. She's like a real person. I remember my early years of teaching. I lived in an apartment, and I'm coming home from work one day, or coming home from school, because as teachers, we call it coming home from school. We don't call it coming home from work. And I'm going up the stairs to my apartment, and I see one of my students. Oddly enough, her grandmother lived in the apartment next to me. I didn't know it. But the next day at school, it was all over school. Miss Snider lives in those apartments. I saw her, it was like a marvel that she lived someplace beside the school. So those connections are important there. And then there was a third thing about connections I was going to say. And the third one is, we all love hearing our name. And the easiest way I think it is to connect with somebody is to say their name to them. And we in public education are in a great position because we have to wear the tags. We have to wear the badges. Our name is written on us. And if you don't know a name, sometimes it's about the eye contact. You have to look down really quick to see that badge while you're making eye contact. But in the education business, most of us are wearing our name. And so the simplest clue I would give to anybody about connecting, call people by name. Even if you're in a restaurant and the waitress says, I'm Caressa and I'm gonna be your waiter today. Say, thank you, Caressa. Caressa, I'd like water. Use people's names. And that is an automatic connection. And connecting builds community.
I love that. And there's two things that you said that stuck out to me. One, I'm also a former teacher and I still run into some of my students out in the community, but you're so right. It's like when they see me, it's like they've seen Bigfoot somewhere, it's like, oh my gosh, Miss Parrish leaves the classroom. I thought that's where she lived and she slept there. But it really does make a big difference, like to be able to meet their parents. It's like the next day the student would show up and it was like we had a different relationship because we had connected outside of the classroom as well. And then the second point, what you said about names, coming from someone whose name is commonly mispronounced.
Yes, and I probably mispronounced it just then.
No,
Yeah.
you did amazing. Thank you. It was perfect. But I think something very easy that, if you ever feel uncomfortable to say somebody's name because you just know you're going to mess it up, you don't know how to pronounce it, ask them like, hey, how do you pronounce your name? Am I saying it right? Ask them, because I'm someone who I will not correct you. I feel terrible if I correct someone on how to say my name. So ask and give that person an opportunity to tell you how to pronounce it.
And it's so true. And I'll tell you my trick on that one. My trick on that one always is, I love your name, or I love the spelling of your name. Tell me exactly how you say it, because because I had that unusual spelling. Lindsay used to be an unusual name. It's not anymore, but yeah, the same thing. People love their name. They love to talk about their name. If you've got to have a conversation, that's a great conversation starter too. Tell me how you were named that. Tell me where that name came from. People love to talk about their name, and they love to be called by their name. And so when this is over today, if nobody gets anything else from what I say, call people by their name. Ask them about their name. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's so important as well. Now, something else I want to talk about is, because you have experience at all levels. You've been in the classroom, you've worked with principals, you've been at the district level, and you've worked with district leaders. And on the topic of building community, how do all of those different pieces, from the classroom to the school to the district, how do they work together to build a culture of community?
And that one's a hard one, because, we all went to school and education to teach kids. In our education courses, they don't teach us that we have to work with other adults, that we have things to do besides teach, that we have paperwork, that we have meetings, that we have, all this other stuff we have to do. We're in a job that's very, very difficult, and it's very complex. And I think everybody out there went to school, so they think they know all about it. But the part they see is just the teacher in the classroom, or the principal in the office doing whatever. I'm a big believer that the best definition I can give of leadership is influence. And I believe that your leaders everywhere, it's about influence, and you influence by modeling. So whatever the superintendent's doing is what the principals are going to do. Whatever the principals do are what the teacher's going to do. Whatever the teachers are doing is probably what the students and parents are going to do. So it's all about influence. And sometimes you are in the midst of working for somebody who has impactful influence. They model everything that you want to be and want to do. Sometimes you work with people that you don't really see that jive. But I think I'm not sure which way we want to go with this discussion, but I think a lot of the building culture is from top down. I do know that. And I think there's research to support that. But I think in the individual classroom, the teacher is the leader of that classroom, and that teacher influences it. And that teacher can do things. So I'm going to drill it down to the classroom right now. That teacher can do things to build culture within their own classroom that they're modeling, that perhaps other people at the campus level will pick up. So I don't know if this is when we want to talk about it, but I'd like to just take a moment to talk about perhaps time management in the classroom, because it is so difficult. You've got to teach, you've got paperwork, you've got meetings, you've got all this other stuff you've got to do. One idea I always pitch to principals to encourage teachers is to do a monthly calendar. And in that monthly calendar, let parents know, I am working late these 3 days this month. I will be in my classroom till 6 o'clock, 6:30, whatever, because teachers are there that late. These are the 3 days I will be in my classroom late. If you want to come talk to me, talk to me. I'm there on these 3 days. I have family too, just like everybody else. And the other days, I'm probably not going to be in my classroom that late, or my time is designated for family. But have a couple of days that you tell parents every month. There's so many tools out there, and ClassTag has those tools to communicate with parents, to say, this is my calendar for the month. Come talk to me. I think in addition to that, I think there's certain days that teachers can designate and say, come to my classroom these days. These are the days I invite you to my classroom. If you can get away from work, if you can get away from home, if you can do whatever, come to my classroom. Now, when I say that, the teachers also got to build activities that day, so that when teachers are in the classroom, the teacher's also taking care of class. So probably, if I'm going to tell teachers that on Thursday, Tuesday, November 1st, parents are invited to my classroom all day. I'm probably not going to do direct teaching because direct teaching is one-on-one is with kids, but I'm probably having doing guided practice or independent practice. So they're working independently and I can help them as they need help, but teachers are there and I can talk to teachers about what's going on. Teachers can, I think the public doesn't know, even though we all went to school, it's a management game to take care of 30 kids. And I don't care if they're 5-year-olds or they're 12-year-olds. 5-year-olds are a different set of management skills. If 18-year-olds are also a set of management skills, so let people in there, I'm going to go one step farther and talk beyond the classroom to perhaps the district level. I think at the district level, one of the things you can do are invite people to school. Invite the realtors to school. You have no idea what influence realtors have on home buying. And if your realtors are telling potential home buyers, this is a good school, this isn't a good school, this has a great principal, this principal over here is pretty snotty. Get those get those realtors on your side. Even if you're in a small town and you have one realtor, get that realtor in school. Let them see what actually goes on. Your realtors do more to help or to damage the reputation of your district than you can imagine. Also, the media. Invite the media about once a year, at least every 2 years. Bring the media in. Have your maintenance people manicure the grounds. Have the buildings clean. Have the floors shiny. Designate a couple of classrooms where the kids can be filmed, and have them come in there with their cameras and do B-roll. B-roll is footage they have on file that they use when they need film to air, because on television you got to see it, so they can put the voice in the background and they can use that file footage. Let people into your school. And I think that's something that we've struggled with all these years. I'm a child of the 70s and people didn't come to school. I mean, you just didn't have people at school. And now fast forward to 2020 and 2022, we want people in school. We need people in school to see what our business is. And especially in this culture we're living in today, there's so much that goes on that could be misinformation. Mm-hmm. And so let people in your schools, we've got to be transparent about what we're doing in schools and the difficulty in the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think that at the district level, especially those who have leaders who work with TSPRA and things like that, they're really, really good at building the public perception and through their PR and marketing that way. I'm a firm believer that a lot of that starts in the classroom, but it's not really brought up that way. But as a parent, it's like, I am desperate to know what is going on in my kids' classroom. I want to see pictures of them happy and participating. And to me, it's like, I am yours for life if I feel this connection to what's going on in the classroom. So I love what you said about inviting parents into your classroom and even allowing them to as a teacher, you have a lot of things going on. So leverage those other parents that can come into your classroom and give them something to do to help while you're in there, but let them see what's going on. And if you can't, you're right, there are tools out there like ClassTag that will allow teachers and schools and at all the levels to see those glimpses of what's going on in the classroom. And I just feel that that's what makes a parent feel connected and get the warm fuzzies and the peace of mind, and then go advocate for your teachers and your school and your district.
I heard just yesterday, after we had spoken earlier this week, I heard yesterday of a great thing that a teacher was doing. I want to share that.
Okay.
I think it's once a week, but it could be once a month, but I'm not real sure. The teacher does a student takeover. Now, we hear student takeovers on social media all the time, but it's kind of a kind of an award system the teacher does. And the student gets a cell phone. I don't know if it's a teacher's personal cell phone or whatever, but they get a cell phone. And for that day, they get to snap pictures all day long in the classroom. Now, remember, you gotta follow all the directory information.
Yeah.
So, there's ways you can do that as an adult. You can let the children take the pictures, and then those just aren't the pictures you use. So I don't want to get into all of that because that's not what this hour is about. But there's ways you can eliminate those. But the child gets to take pictures all day long in the classroom, and that's what the teacher uses to share with parents and on his or her social media pages and with the district, shares them with the district. And it's from a student's perspective, So I love that. So it's not just me taking the picture because I think that's a good picture of what we're doing, but it's how the students see it. And
I love that.
It's a cool reward system. Now, and I just want to make sure I'm making it very clear. Just because the student takes a picture doesn't mean they're going to be used. The teacher has free reins to go over and delete pictures, to only use certain pictures, to edit pictures down. But I think that's a great reward system. I'm not real clear. I wasn't real clear if the teacher does it weekly or monthly. I think it'd be pretty hard as a teacher to do that weekly, but monthly or maybe bi-monthly, that might be a thing where the teacher just, here's the camera all day long. You get to take pictures. You get to be out. It was an elementary classroom, by the way. You get to be out of your seat, taking pictures of people doing stuff. We let people know what you're learning, what you're doing. I think that's just a great little takeover that way. And that helps the teacher. At the end of the day, when the teacher as a parent, you want a picture of what your child's doing in the classroom. That was one thing that was off the teacher. The teacher's got to teach. It's hard for the teacher to take a picture too so I thought that was a great little tool.
I do. I love that too. I've heard of something similar, and I think they called it like classroom historian, but they made the kids fill out an application to become the classroom historian. And
that might be what's going on. I don't know, but I thought that was a cool idea because
that is really cool.
At the secondary level, it's pretty common to have a student takeover day, pep rallies and stuff like that. There's a lot of student at the upper grades. You see that. You don't see it so much at elementary. So that's a pretty cool idea, I think.
And that is cool.
Yeah. I also want to elaborate on something too. First, I want to make sure that when I say teachers invite parents into your classroom, you designate the days. You control the days. It's not 180 days of the year. You control it once or twice a month. The other thing that I would say about that is I hope the people listening to this, because we're probably all school people, I hope they realize that when we have the parent-teacher conferences, especially at elementary, those may be 10 minutes. That may be all the parent gets with the teacher. And keep in mind, 10 minutes isn't very long. And especially if you've never met the parent, 5 minutes of that is introductions. So keep in mind that that's how we connect initially and meet the teacher. We initially meet, but there's very little extensive time dedicated one-on-one. So that's why I'm big on letting people into school, let them see what's going on. But again, school or the campus controls those days. So, and of course, there's all the security we got to take care of now too. So teacher, if a parent wants to enter, they got to know once they enter the building, security's got to be checked. There's got to be, and there may be times that a parent can't come into that classroom for certain reasons. So, I'm making it sound Pollyanna, but I know there's ifs, ands, or buts. I know it's easier said than done. I'm just throwing those out as ideas and know that the people listening to this know that there's rules, there's procedures, there's laws that also dictate all of that.
Well, and I like whether it's one teacher taking the initiative to, see if this benefits her classroom or his classroom, or if it's a school-wide thing that the principal's like, hey, we're going to give this a try. But I like that let's all build a calendar because we know that we're going to have to put these systems in place to make it work. But I think it also for teachers who already have so many things on their plate, like parent engagement should not be just one more thing that you have to do. And it shouldn't feel like that. It should be something that it has to happen. It needs to happen. It's a win-win-win situation for everyone. It can be a win for the teacher, a win for the parent, and ultimately the goal is to be a win for the student, right? We partner together. So I think building those boundaries for the teacher, and let's not make it one more thing, but let's build the structure to support our teachers in that process. And what would you say, like, how can principals or district leaders support their teachers in trying to build that relationship with parents?
I think, first of all, the principal needs to model it. So the principal also needs to be doing those things. And so modeling and permission is part of it. I think we just keep putting more and more things on teachers. And so, we're having this conversation and I'm like, any teacher listening to this is like, that's one more thing I've got to do.
I know.
But I'm going to jump another thing because you and I've had a previous conversation, and we both talked about the things that we see schools doing to encourage parent community with parents. One of them, we're talking about schools have found places to put washing machines and dryers so that families who have limited resources can come to school to do their laundry. We can teach the kids to do the laundry while the washing machines go in. Parents can go visit those classrooms. I love it.
Yeah.
And I have seen that at the elementary, the middle school, and the high school level. What I loved at the high school level, in most cases, they've taken part of a gym and made like the dressing rooms or something, sort of like a washateria. But get the kids involved. Let the kids see that. And that you're not doing that, but, you're doing that as a service. They're going to have to wash their clothes someplace, and that's a great place to wash them. The other thing we talked about was, I think the most difficult thing for adults and parents today is math. I don't care if it's kindergarten math. I don't care if it's algebra 1. I don't care if it's calculus. Math is hard. And we're not giving kids enough credit for how smart they really are to learn math these days. I love it when we have math nights. Now, we traditionally see them at the elementary level, but I think we need them at the secondary, at the middle school and secondary level too. I don't know of any parent who will tell you, "Oh, I enjoy helping my kids with their math homework." They all feel. So simple things that we've been doing for years, like math night. That's a great thing too. It's an after school activity for our teachers, and I know that. But when they're planned ahead of time, and maybe not every teacher has to be at math night. Maybe we have 4 math nights throughout the year, and every teacher is expected to attend one of them, and be there. The principal is always going to be there, and we can provide food. We can talk to parents beyond just math, but having a teacher there to teach parents just basic things that were helping kids with math. I would attend as a non-parent because the math thing is so hard these days. So perhaps not even math nights just for parents. It's for the community. Come see how we're teaching. There's a lot of misconception out there. I've seen on social media, people saying this is how they do math and this is all they have to do. Well, it was modern math when I was in about the 6th grade, and I'm 65. And now there's a new modern math. Nothing stays the same. Everything changes.
Yes.
And just because that's the way you learned it doesn't mean the way it's taught today. And doesn't mean it was bad, doesn't mean it's good. It's just different. So even
a friend of mine was reminding me there was a line in the movie The Incredibles, and the dad's helping his son with homework, I think. And he's like, they changed math. Did you know that they changed math?
Yeah. So those types of things. I think building community, and I'll shut up on that because I know we have other things to talk about. I say never forget your senior citizens. Never forget them because they vote. They vote. Their taxes are frozen. So when you vote for something, their taxes are not going to change. But do things to invite senior citizens in. Senior citizens love being around children. So invite them in to read to kids. Invite them to come and visit classrooms. Connect with the retired teachers in your communities, whether you're small or large. Get them to volunteer. They still love doing that. Give them discounts or free passes to your football games, your basketball games, your band events, your drama, your theater arts events. Give them a reason to be connected to the school. And again, connection, you're building community. And here's the thing that's so sad is sometimes we forget about our senior citizens until we have a bond election or a VATRE. And then all of a sudden we're about our senior citizens. And I'm at that age now where I have friends who are like, that's just annoying. They only want me when I need to vote. So as a school and as a district and as campus, district, classroom, keep those senior citizens involved. That they've got the time. They want to be there. I love the idea of when the retired teachers get involved. Lots of times your retired teachers are the ones who come and help you celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week in May. They come and read to the kids. Their fundraisers are giving things back to the school. Connect with those retired teachers because they're also talking to other people. So it's about influence. The last thing I'm going to say on influence and connection is I think sometimes we're our own worst enemy. Most of my friends are not in education. And I think of the times I griped and I complained about my job. I griped and I complained about my principal. I griped and I complained, and that's just affecting community and the image we have of our school. So I think we all have to complain about the job, but let's try to complain with each other.
Yeah.
And keep those who are not a part of the school district, even though you're a part of the school district because you live in that community, but help with the image of public education these days.
Yeah, absolutely. One other thing that I want to talk about is when it comes to bringing these people into the schools or being involved in the different activities going on, there's so many barriers, whether it's language barriers or transportation barriers or work schedules and childcare and things like that. And I think that there's a misconception of what parents may believe about, well, the school doesn't want me involved, or they may be intimidated to get involved, or the teacher thinks, oh, the parents don't care because they're not reaching out. And I think that it's just all misconceptions. And ultimately, we all want the same thing. We all care about the students and we want the students to be successful. So how do we combat all of these barriers?
That's a great thing to talk about. You know, our operations at school are basically 8 to 4. And working parents work 8 to 5. I mean, they work the same hours we're in school, and it's hard for them to get involved. And some of them have jobs that they can't leave, or if they leave, they're not paid. I have always had the opportunity, especially with my job with TSPRA, to get in front of superintendents about 3 or 4 times a year. And one of the things I tell them always is go to civic meetings, go do your state of the superintendent address, go to the banks, go to the realtors, talk to people about letting their employees have time to go to school, to visit with their teachers and their principals. Give them that 30 minutes or an hour a year. Even if it's one time a year, they get an hour that they're not docked, that they can actually go, you know, don't make it a burden. And that's what it is. You know, I had an employee that had 2 special needs kids. And when she came to work for me, she was like, I don't have to take off to go to the ARD meeting. And I was like, oh gosh, no. And she's like, everywhere else I've had to work, I've had to schedule PTO. I've had to schedule the ARD way in advance. I've had to take off work, you know. And I was like, no, your family is your priority and those kids are your priority. Go. And you know what? Her being gone an hour and a half didn't affect our work one bit, you know?
Right.
I think a lot of that, it goes back to leadership and influence, but I think it takes the leader of the organization to talk to other leaders about, you know, we want our schools to be better, and our schools are better when our parents are involved. And the only way we can let them be involved is that connection, and it's going to happen during the workday, you know.
Yeah.
Some things I can't expect my teachers every night to be at work until 9 o'clock because that's after hours for your people. Can we work together and just once a semester, once a year, once a semester, let parents have an hour, an hour and a half, whatever it takes for driving time, a half a day to go visit, you know. The productivity, I think, in the workplace is better. If a mom has 3 kids and the employer says she can have half a day to go visit all 3 of your teachers, but I need you back at 1 o'clock. That's a fringe benefit that employer's giving to the community. And again, I think I keep saying it, it's leadership, talking to other leadership to make it happen. You know, I job at TSPRA, I've worked with a lot of the hotel industry a lot because conference and meeting space. And, you know, they're hourly workers. They can't go to school and have parent conferences. If they're 15 minutes late to work, they get fired. They make minimum wage. They can't take off an hour, you know, to go meet. So do things to allow that as a benefit of the job. And your workplace is better for doing that because your workers are happier and things are easier.
Yeah. And they have peace of mind knowing that they have the time to go do that. Well, that made me think also, we have so many more virtual options as well, leveraging Zoom or Google Meet,
good
things
point.
like that to connect. And maybe it's even a conversation like finding out when is the best time for the parent in order to do that. And if that doesn't align with my conference period, then it's a conversation with the principal to find coverage so that I can go have that conversation and build that connection.
That's a great advice. Employers can make time for the employees to Zoom with teachers if they need to. And, you know, a lot of our parents don't have access to technology. So at the workplace, there is technology. And if the employer, I love that idea. I'm stealing it. When I talk to superintendents, talk about it. Ask employers, have a room, break room, or a place where your employees can talk to their teachers face to face on a Zoom.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Right. Is there anything else? I always want to close with the same question, and it's about who I know you work with some amazing community builders, and you have a huge network of people who are doing amazing things. So my final question, unless there's anything else that we didn't get to talk about that, you know, we really need to talk about today, because I know you have really great ideas. But my final question is, who are some leaders or schools and districts that come to your mind when I say community builders? You're like, these are some people that come to mind.
Oh, man, that's a hard one. And I hate to put anybody on the spot. So what I'm going to say to do that is I'm going to be very generic in my answer and say every school district needs to connect with their professional associations. I worked with TSPRA, the Texas School Public Relations Association. We're about 1,100 members. 1,100 members who do nothing but help each other. And those 1,100 members are the ones who've taught me about community. And so, you know, I am going to put a plug in for TSPRA, even though I'm retired and I'm not there anymore. That's a great way to connect and learn skills, on the job skills, because even though we are in competitive school districts, everybody helps each other. And it doesn't matter if you're a large school or a small school. And we all need to communicate. And the job is just good. COVID taught us communication's huge right now. You know, we'll learn those skills. And you can have somebody at your district. It can be many of our members, not many, but we have members that are the superintendent's a personal assistant. I mean, he or she are our members because they are the ones in the background helping the superintendent to connect.
That's great. And that brings me, you just made me think of that. So who can become a member of TSPRA?
You only need to be employed in public education and have a job that addresses communication. Now, we've been talking about communication. What job in education isn't about communication anymore? So our requirement is your employee of public education. So with a role in communications. So.
All right, fantastic. Any other plugs that you want to make about TSPRA? We know it's a fantastic organization. So yes, feel free to fire away with any additional information.
I've got a conference, our big conference every year is in February. I'll tell you the date. It's February 20th through 23rd. It'll be in Fort Worth. And I know they're accepting registrations now. Julie Thanum, who's a former INSPRA president and a former TSPRA president, is managing TSPRA. So TSPRA is in very good hands. They are taking scholarship applications right now. So they give away 4 scholarships for somebody to go to that conference debt-free. There's online learning. They just need to plug into the website and see what else is going on. But there's a wealth of information out there. And dues are relatively inexpensive compared to a lot of things. What you pay for dues, you get a lot more out of it than what you pay. So thanks for letting me put that plug in for them. So.
All right. Well, thanks, Lindsay, so much for the conversation. Was there anything else that you wanted to add?
Well, let me just close by saying there are tons of tools out there to help schools communicate. ClassTag provides some of those tools. There are tools. Don't think that you've got to do it by yourself. There are tools out there to help us communicate in schools these days. And schools need to explore those tools. They need to find the tools that are best for them. You guys have a tool that's worthy of looking at. And take advantage of the tools that are available to you, because there's tools and technology out there that assist with communication.
Absolutely. I think that that's key. And when we talk about supporting all the players, it's like find a tool. First and foremost, provide a tool to all of the players that need to be effectively communicating with families, the community, all of that. So thanks for that, Lindsay. I always enjoy chatting with you. So thanks again for the time. And I look forward to connecting again soon and having more chats about building community.
And I look forward to seeing you around.
All right. Thanks, Lindsay. We'll talk soon.